And welcome to the members and patrons only live stream show. Making a epic return today as I've been away for a couple weeks, had the trip, and just been kind of trying to pick back up the pieces and get back up to speed once we're getting back to the mainland here. So sorry about the little bit of the break in doing these member streams. The intention is to actually get these going a little bit more. But we're also going to do, I think, a little bit more of them and then just kind of keep them to more of a kind of an hour time frame rather than really, really elongated. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about Sam Howell. I know that we did a little bit of discussion on that in the live stream, but I wanted to really just kind of reiterate a couple of things that I have from my standpoint on this outlook of Sam in the future and why I think it was such a valuable trade to make the moves that the Seahawks did. But I also want to announce to the members and patrons that we're going to be doing a call-in show, our monthly call-in show. So that will be next Thursday. We're going to shoot for 5 o'clock, I think. So I think evening time seems to be the good one. So I think we'll probably lock in there unless I hear that there's some issues from you guys with meeting up at that time. If I do hear that there's people who are just too tough to get on in there, then we'll bounce it over to Saturday if that proves a better day. So I'm kind of playing with one of those 2 days, depending on what works for you guys out there. But we will continue to do those, try to do those once a month. And if we can do them a bunch, the goal is to try to get kind of people in and out a little bit so we can get more people in. But let's just see where it goes on that for next week. So that brings us to today's subject, which is Sam Howell. The Seahawks, of course, traded for Howell. They moved back in round 3 to move to 4 at the top of round 4, and then moved back in 5 to 6. So a little bit of dropping back in the draft. But to me, there's a lot of things that this move affords the Seattle Seahawks that probably isn't being talked about as much as probably should be talked about. He is now going to be able to come to Seattle here and leave where an organization that's in, I think for a lack of a better word, disrepair the past few seasons. They just can't get things right. And that's not any quarterback fault, you bring onto that room. He's, of course, had the really, I'd say pretty close to epic college career for the amount of production he put up and how good he was in college, even changing offenses into his final year. And having the strange dip as he did in the draft where teams just couldn't get sold on him. Had a pretty solid year consistent with a lot of other quarterbacks who go out in their first season, and especially going out in their first season in a porous supporting cast, porous maybe coaching staff, defensive-minded head coach. We've all been down this lane before. I'm not looking to necessarily reiterate into that. But just on the surface of that, you look at that kid and go, okay, there's a little bit of something here with this guy that I think I got that I can pull off of this that still has upside, still is not a guy where his story's been written. And this is, of course, something we talked about in the live stream. But I think there's also the part of this of looking forward beyond just this year with him coming in with Geno being able to potentially help guide this young kid a little bit and show him the way. Certainly something I don't think he had a lot of there with Washington, it would seem like. And you get into next year now, you've got the cheap contract on the 1 year, $1 million deal for a season after this. It's on both seasons, super cheap. And boy, you look at these backup quarterbacks. Have you guys looked at this? Sam Darnold making $10 million a year. Marcus Mariota making $9 million a year. The cost of these backup quarterbacks is just escalating. To have a cheap one coming off a 4,000-yard season like he did, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Drew Lock ever had a 4,000-yard year in his 2 seasons of starting. And so this was, to me, a phenomenal on just that value point, and then looking forward what he can give you if you give him the supporting cast. Can you imagine a time moving into next year where the Hawks have dealt with the interior of their offensive line? Lucas has got the knee back to being right. Cross is developing into the player he's going to become. All of your skill position players are holding up in the way that you hoped, and going forward like you'd think. Your 1-2 punch of Charbonnet and Walker, and you're giving Hal this environment to walk into. And if Seattle's going to go for it in 2025, which is the argument I've been kind of making here, is that if things go the right way this year, not in we go out there and we win 10 or 11 games, but put out a team that shows it's very close to being a contender. It's just taking the onboarding of Mike McDonald's scheme, the onboarding of Grubb's scheme on the offensive side of the ball, and you give a season of that, they'll be ready to go next year. And yesterday I pointed out that there was so much cap space that could be cleaned if they wanted to off of where they sit with their cap situation currently, to the point where they could escalate themselves well over $100 million with a couple of easy peasy, free and easy moves. Tyler's Lockett's retirement alone is $25 million. And Geno Smith's another one of those guys. I'm not, as you guys all know, in any hurry or intention to move off of Geno, but I will say that if you get in next year, he is another guy you save about $25 million from if you do move off him at that point. And you do have a guy like Howell, who is where he is, being at that point then going into year 3, still very cheap. You could go draft your quarterback of the future and do that whole thing we've talked about, which is next year is maybe the time where you package in a bunch of picks and then you move up in the draft and satiate any of these Hawk fans that are, of course, jumping at the bit and doing everything they can to try to say we need to get that quarterback now. So you bring that young guy in and he competes with Sam Howell in that first year, but Sam Howell getting the real clean and easy opportunity at that point to start in that first year for a team that's ready to go out there and contend. I think that's a nice little marrying up of a situation there. And then you've got 2 real kind of asset points you're working off with that. So first, Sam Howell comes in this year, plays backup, makes the Seahawks feel like they can be confident enough that whatever they do at the second quarterback position, they can move off of Geno's contract after next year. John Schneider can get the situation back to a pure Russell Wilson 2012 vibe kind of like place as far as the cost of quarterback. He can go make his trade for another QB or do whatever he wants to do on that other side of it. Lower down that salary that much, though, be able to really now implement across the board the additions that they may want to add in order to really put this team then over the top and keep the quarterback cost really, really low. Not to mention, you're not just getting rid of Geno Smith here. You're not at that point potentially just toss him away. If Geno goes out this year, has a 4,000-yard plus season, 4,200 yards, 4,300 yards, is there a team that would trade for Geno with a contract now that they can move the numbers around a little bit with Geno and turn him into a very cheap club-controlled cost player for them? If they just don't have any other options in the draft, or they don't like they're worried about the young guy they got coming up, or they want a young guy that they want to have wait a year. Geno serves as kind of that Alex Smith role to Patrick Mahomes for a season. So you get maybe then back even a 4th-round pick for Geno on that. There's something still then pulled back on that other end. If you have Howell go out this year and play well, and you want to, move off Geno, or you get your quarterback the future and then you move off Howell. I mean, can you imagine if you have Howell having a season where, okay, you move off Geno this year, you get draft capital back, Howell starts, you draft your quarterback of the future in next year's draft, Howell goes through a year with great supporting cast and a great overall team, has a really good season. You then are able to move Howell because you have at that point, so the franchise tag ability to put that on top of him. You move Howell to a team, you're not going to maybe get 2 first-round picks, but you'll get something. And now you're starting to do this thing that Schneider always has talked about with the Packer years, which is that was their ability back in the day to essentially take quarterback stock, raise it in the developmental cycle of things, and then push the stock onto other places to where they could get capital back. And that's what you presumably could do here with both the Geno Smith and Sam Howell situation. Saying either's going to get you some big monster haul, but Howell, if he goes out and has a good year, 2025, if he's starting to be that starter guy, and then you've already then drafted your QB of the future who's just waiting in the wings, that's where teams do the opposite of making the desperate decisions. And we got to go do this kind of move, as opposed to really like you're lying in wait sitting there and you're the guy that's got all the goods and everybody's going to come a calling, you're in the seller's seat. And that means you're going to get the maximum value back for that player if somebody does want him. No, you want him? I mean, we like this guy. We like him. I mean, we'll let you have him, but we're pretty fond of him. So you're going to have to make us offer. Make it something legit, something in the ballpark of a 1st-round pick for Howell after a year of 4,500 yards, something like that. We'll listen to that. So you're in a really good state as also from again, just lack of a better term, I guess, quarterback draft stock standpoint of things, or quarterback stock standpoint of things on this, and the returns that this could be getting you from that as well into this deal. The potential of Sam Howell, definitely a part of this deal. And then you've got the aspect of, if you are in that contending state next year, can a quarterback like Sam Howell take you there? Can a 6th round or 5th round quarterback take you to the Super Bowl? And this is maybe the heart of the matter. This is the Don Henley heart of the matter of the situation right now. Because the people that want the first round quarterback say this is what it takes in history to have this. Mahomes, Manning, Stafford. Got to have these kind of guys. Excuse me. Sorry. Whew. Coffee made me sneeze. And it's not a bad point on their part. I went back through before the show today and was taking a look a little bit more at the history of recent quarterbacks, of the quarterbacks who've just gotten to the Super Bowl. I think winning in the Super Bowl is one thing or another, but I don't think that even the people that would make the argument that you need a first-round quarterback or a high first-round quarterback to get to the Super Bowl would make the argument that it's not necessarily to get the win. It's to at least get to the big game. And while they don't have a bad point to make on this one, and I don't think that I'm going to solve this particular debate today here on this show with you guys, I also do think, though, when you go and you look at this, that there is definitely an open door to another way of this happening. This last Super Bowl, the Niners got in there as they've been on their run, and Brock Purdy got in healthy this year. Arm injury enough by the end was fine. And you come through this game that they lost, and you say, okay, well, that was a guy, literally Mr. Irrelevant, last pick of an NFL draft, last selection of an NFL draft, got a team to a Super Bowl, might have had him to a Super Bowl last year if he hadn't got injured on kind of a freakish play. Got him to the Super Bowl. And were they held back by him? Was he if you're going to 5 things with the Niners in the Super Bowl as to why they lost, would any of the first 5 things of them been Brock Purdy not playing up to speed? I think if anything, he played really, really good football. This was more to me about of course, Shanahan having that tendency to get a little tight maybe at times in games and going away from the running game. But he made some big time throws in that game and just missed making some other big time throws by this much that wasn't really a bad throw. Ball just couldn't get there on just enough of a time to get in there. But still, he did his part. He did enough. Jalen Hurts the previous year throwing for well over 300 yards. I think like 340, 350 total yards of offense. Not his fault that the Eagles lost. Here's a guy, again, not a first-round pick, right? It's like late second-round pick, something like that. The door's open here on this, even in recent history. It's open, of course, going back 10 years, as I've pointed out before. Russell Wilson, 2 times back-to-back got there. That's a third-round quarterback getting to back-to-back Super Bowls. Did you have this team built up around him at the running back position, all that? Yeah, but that's also what I'm kind of saying John Schneider's going to be able to do. Look at this roster right now. Who's our big free agents moving into next off season on this roster? If we kind of go down the line and think about it. Julian Love, Trey Brown, Jaron Reed, probably pretty close to retirement at that point. Don't really have anybody else on the defense you can think of. Offensively, you go over there and you look at that group and you go, Tyler. Okay. So you're not really losing a lot of guys, anybody to retirement. You're not really losing a lot of guys to really free agency next offseason when you look at that either. But then yet you have this whole kind of returning team for the most part going forward. I know we had to deal with the linebacker position, but some of this is going to be all doubled down in this draft. So that's why I'm not mentioning it. So you go into next year's roster with an ability to build that super team up is my baseline point. You're able to get up over that $100 million marker spot. And these guys you're bringing in the building are not, you're doing what you should be doing if you're going to spend. And I'm saying it's smart to go spend a free agency. It doesn't even just have to be that, as we've seen in the past. It can be that you've traded for a guy and you're bringing him on in that way. But you have the opportunity then to really, really push your team's talent level up a wide margin at that point with how you potentially could spend that money and add to that team. And because the roster will be pretty filled up at that point, it's not like you're looking to fill a whole lot of holes. So a young quarterback's going to have an opportunity to really excel. I certainly think that if a guy's like a Jalen Hurts or a Brock Purdy in recent seasons, or Colin Kaepernick or a Russell Wilson or a Rex Grossman, it's if these guys can get in there and get it done with those particular rosters, and we can build a particularly equivalent roster here with what we do, just maybe in a different way, then I think you're certainly on the road to that. Next year, your backfield will have still Walker and Charbonnet. Next year, DK will still be here. Tyler may or may not be here, but you then still have JSN, Bebe, any receiver they add this season. Certainly, if you lose Lockett, you're going to be adding more to the mix on that one. Hell, that might be one of your signings. Fant comes back, bookend tackle set, young interior offensive line in place. When you go out in that market, those positions I just talked about, you're not going to need to address. So you build that super team up around this guy. Recent history has shown us those guys can get there. And for the people that do the, first round thing, they hate this one, of course. And this is the one where they go, well, that's the anomaly. That's the anomaly. It's like, well, it's the anomaly when I can bring it with other guys, when I can bring up a Nick Foles, when I can have Super Bowls like the Russell Wilson of the third round against the sixth round Tom Brady. These are certainly not, you can find your first round quarterback against first round quarterbacks too. You can find your Stafford against Burrow. Those exist as well. But that's the whole point of my argument on this, is that there's just not one fixed path of getting there to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. And that a guy like Sam Howell can be that guy to do it. The key on it is to get him as a depressed asset. The key on him is to build the super team around him. The key is to build a team to win the Super Bowl. Not to find the superhero quarterback, but to build the team to get to the show and win it. And there's teams that have done it in the past. We did it 10 years ago. It is not crazy town to think that we can go back down this line and find that same rhythm once again. So I've got a lot of faith in this, approach John Schneider's taken. It is one where you could potentially down the road with this kid, Sam Howell, roll 2025, give him as stacked a deck as you will find in any of football. For a guy who's shown, when you give me a stacked deck, I can light the world on fire. His sophomore year, he was in a spread-based system before they left into it in his junior year. He lost 4 guys to the NFL draft that year. 4. So when he was in that spread system with those playmakers all over the place, he was pretty wicked. Give it to him again. Maybe he can be that again. And maybe we can go win a Super Bowl again, even with a guy like Sam Howell. I know not a lot of people, and while it is nice to have the great quarterback like the Patrick Mahomes or the Josh Allen or these, do they make things easier in a lot of respects? Boy, yeah, they do. But it's not the only way to do it. And the other ways to do it can be successful as well. It's happened in recent history. It's happened 10 years ago. You can go back 20 years. You can find examples all over the place. And it just requires the teams to be a little more imaginative than what I might call just a bit of the boring, just go get the quarterback. We'll be good. We'll be fine. Just get the QB, man. It's going to be all good at that point. Everything will be handled. We don't have to do anything else. We'll just draft and stuff he'll take care of it. I don't like the thinking on that. I don't. This is like a market opportunity, because that line of thinking is so pervasive that if there's other people that go a little bit of a different direction to it, and I've long said this about John Schneider, that he's got that blueprint from 2012 still that's got to be lingering in his head to a degree in how he built that roster and how it was constructed and the timing of when he got the quarterback, and then the benefits of having the quarterback taking less than a percentage point of your total salary cap. We'll see where Sam can go. But the background on this kid is not a flash in the pan. His story is not yet told. He's still a young kid, 23 years old. Value all over the place in what he provides the Seattle Seahawks. Just purely a backup quarterback this year for a Geno Smith in his mid-30s, so that you have actually something substantial behind Geno still to make things work if he goes down. The fact the Hawks don't have to push for a quarterback in this draft now, they don't have to do something desperate because they don't know what they're going to do with the backup position, and they don't have the money to spend $9 million for Marcus Mariota. To down the line in the trade compensation it offers for Geno and Sam Howell, to the potential way you can build this team supersized in the 2025 season, because you got a quarterback here who's going to be costing $1 million up against the salary cap. He's going to be taking that less than 1% off the salary cap, but giving you way more play than what you're paying for. I appreciate you guys watching today. Please do, I want to thank, you guys don't have to hit the like button today if you don't want to. These are member videos. These are offline. I ain't showing nobody these. But I do appreciate you guys watching. Thank you guys for all your support and the patience with me the past couple of weeks, not being able to do these as much. It's been a little bit of a quick thing. I got my move going on here and just kind of been bouncing around a little bit. So the draft and all that stuff, trying to get some of these videos out with these free agents. Boy, we're signing new free agents. Seems like every day, and I'm trying to get a video out, and I'm just like, oh, I'm behind 3 players every time. It gets tough, but fun nonetheless. It's been an exciting offseason to go through, and I'm excited for the future of the team. Big time excited for the future of the team. Let's see where you guys are at today. Megan says, the more I look into Howell, the more I'm loving him, flaws and all. Me too. I mean, even in his flaws, at least it comes from a place of, at times, grittiness, toughness, trying to do something, not playing from a point of fear, right, Megan? Like, he might fail, but he's failing going balls to the wall. And that instinct is an instinct you like. You feel like you can pull that back. It is that old thing of, much easier to tell him whoa than sick him. Much easier. What's up, Brian? Holy hand grenade, how you doing? What now, Saturday? We'll be doing the members stream next Thursday as a call-in show. But if that doesn't work, let me know, DM me or whatever, and we can maybe move it if we need to Saturday. But I will do it in the evening. Megan says, just ordered my new Fallout themed Xbox controller, and it's awesome. Easter gift for my mother, as I don't eat chocolate. That's cool. I'll tell you, those controllers can sometimes go out, Megan. I'm a big person with my controllers. I just go to I do that GameStop thing where you insure it. So, like, if it does have, but if you got the special one, those ones are probably built nice. Snail extend DK next year, no brainer. Yeah. He goes into the final year of his contract. He has enough of his bonus money at that point almost completely bled off of his contract extension from the prior. So now you can put him onto a new contract and lower down his cap hit next year. And that's on top of clearing all that cap space that I talked about last year, or next year, where if you move Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett, potentially Leonard Williams, I think he stays on the books, but just to put all these guys together for you guys, Leonard Williams, Draymond Jones, and Uchenna, that's $73 million right there. So, this would be in addition to that. You could add that number if you did extend DK at that point. And I'd expect one thing's going to happen, one or another, Snail, is that they either extend DK or he gets traded at that point. I don't think that they would have him walk through the final season of his contract. Snail says, nah, B, Sam Howell is the future, unless Cam Ward is available. I love me some Cam Ward, Snail. I shed one single tear when I heard that he was transferring to Miami. Because I was like, that was gonna be my guy. I was gonna pound the table for Cam. Damn it. Gotta wait a year on that one. Yeah, holy hand grenade. I agree that that's the going rate for the top backups, but even to Brian's point or to Snail's point, who was saying that? Yeah, but to Brian's point on this, I don't think that they're close to the top. They're those are like in Mariota's case to me. He's in a spot to me where it's like he doesn't have the mobility he quite once did, I don't think. And I don't even know if he's a functional passer at the quarterback position at this point. Same thing for Donald. Like you could throw him out there in both of, especially in Donald's case, he could just completely throw up all over himself. Megan says, I wanted Nixby. I'm just glad we missed Penix. You know how I feel about that, as we agree. I do. I do think I will say this, Megan, when it comes to Nix and Penix, and me and Brandon will be talking about this tonight, though those guys are most likely now out of the situation, and with that draft situation I walked through last night, that's what I proposed, is that those guys will be off the board by the time we pick anyway, so it ain't going to matter. But if they're not, could John do something wild? I mean, he could do something wild. Hand Grenade says, did Sam Howell play in a system that Grubb is running? No, Grubb's running more of what, for lack of a better term, Holy Hand Grenade, I would call Grubb's more of a new age spread concept system. The similarities are that Chan Gailey was the offensive coordinator for Sam Howell. So Chan Gailey had a little bit more NFL background to his spread. So it was like, sort of like, how do I put this? It's like, Chan Gailey comes from the NFL circle, and the spread system in his system goes through the NFL kind of spin cycle wash to when he gets to UNC. Whereas with Grubb, it's all kind of a developmental thing out at the college game as far as his spread systems, inserting power-based concepts in his spread system. There is some similarities, I would say, and this was probably the part that really brought Grubb onto this, in that the uniqueness in Gailey's spread concepts versus other spread concepts in college or the NFL, and Grubb spread concepts in college or the NFL, is they both really try to take advantage of the shot plays down the field. You go watch Sam Howell's highlights, at UNC in that sophomore year, and it's bombs. It's, ding, 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 bomb. Ding, 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 bomb. Ding, ding, bomb. Ding, 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 bomb. It's the dink and the dunk, and then I'm gonna take the top off the defense as soon as they creep up a little bit too much. There is some similarities in those two parts to it, but I think Grubb's is a little more power-based concept. His a little more moving offensive linemen back across the formation post snap, that type of stuff. Rand the Cut says we could be set up to draft a guy and have cheap quarterbacks for years. Amen, Rand. So it's a good position to be in. As I say on that top, it's a position that now when teams come calling, you can ask for all of it, everything. Brian says, I wish we had some clarity on the free agent contracts so we can see the cap money available. We'll get it in probably about next week or so. We'll figure out what's what with that. A little bit more understanding of which way it's going to go. I do think we're pretty much up at the tippity top. Brian says, I still see John possibly adding a 5th or 6th, 7th round quarterback, but might not, but it's possible. I mean, it is possible, and he's talked about it for years, Brian, wanting to do it. So it is certainly an in-play situation, I would say. But I think all quarterbacks are still kind of in play in this draft for that reason a bit. The only tough part is, and we go through the quarterbacks, we'll get in detail on them tonight, but you got pretty much Jordan Travis and Joe Milton are really the only two kind of interesting guys. The rest, I think, if John's sitting there trying to pick for value, I think he's going to be left in a spot where he's got this position player here available in the 5th round that's like here, and this quarterback down here who's got an undrafted grade maybe even on, or a 7th round grade on. I think that's where this could possibly go with that. Brian says, hard to believe John Schneider isn't seeing the Russ situation exactly with Sam. That's where I think it is as well. I think if I was I try to think about this a lot with John Schneider, about if I was in his position, if I was going through what he's going through and, trying to make sense of stuff. How do I get back to Super Bowl path now? We've stumbled a little bit out of these blocks here for a few years, trying to kind of recreate the magic. How do I get back? It's like go back to your source. What was our source on this? Competition. We turned over the roster. We got a hungry young roster in play. We got a really talented roster. I mean, we were able to really stack up the talent. Yeah, we really wasn't, the centerpiece wasn't necessarily the quarterback position. We built up the offensive line. You come back around to this. That's where I just agree. Like, he looks at the Sam Howell thing. He's like, yeah, this is very much like a Russ thing. I got a guy that if I give him that talent out here, he can go put up 4,600 yards. And if it's on me to put the rest of the talent together across the board, I can get that done. especially already having the groundwork I've been able to lay with these past 2 drafts and all of the Denver Bronco draft capital we've been able to double down on to help rebuild this thing back up that much faster. That's really the big part of this for moving into next year. When you come down to like, what do we really need? Is you're in that spot now where you've had a couple of years of drafting with this rebuild in mind. And you've had a couple of real high picks that are now probably cementing themselves at those positions where you don't have to worry about a whole lot. You just feel pretty good. Yeah, we can talk about anything, Brian. We don't got to just talk about this. I'm down to discuss anything. Anything. But yeah, I do think the draft of quarterbacks lessened now too with the Howell thing. So I think that's John also signaling I wasn't going to get a guy in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round that's Sam Howell's talent. So I'll make this move here. Brian says, wish we had some Clara. Oh, sorry. I read that one. Excuse me. Brian says, Commanders are rumored to be in on Drake May, and New England at 3 is the spot for the Minnesota trade-up. New England doesn't like Daniels. Play 10 games in Massachusetts, Buffalo, and New England every year. Word had it too, Brian, that the Belichick liked Daniels a lot. Kind of random that they don't like. Has he got small hands? So I know we had Penix with the big 10-inch flopper fingers. No, I don't have any hand length measurements on Jaden Daniels. Which means I guess we got to wait till his pro day. Sorry, guys. I'm coughing a little bit here. Google does not need to be. Ooh, well, 9 5/8 inches. But the Patriots had no issues with his hand size, which comes in at a middling 9 5/8 inches. I don't know. It's just I'm trying to figure out what their problem would have been with Mash. Like, arm may not be really viable in poor weather. Man, I felt like. I mean, here's my thing with it, Brian. If I'm New England, I'm trading out of the spot just because. You know, my big thing is know thyself, know where you're at, know what position you're in to do what, when, where. And so if I'm New England right now, the whole turnover off of Tom Brady was an utter failure. Belichick is a great coach, but screwed the pooch as far as his general managing the last about half decade. So we got to clean up on aisle 9 right now, and probably 11 and probably 12. And you're not going to fix all that with Jaden Daniels. And so that's where I get to my principled point on things. Like, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if I say that for us, I feel this way. I would feel the same way if I'm New England. I think their offensive line has been typically in good shape, but then again, they're losing Trent Brown this year. I think that they're going to be losing another guy for as well. So if I'm New England and I've got Jaden Daniels there as a guy that would be very enticing to one of these teams in the top 10, and all I got to do is move back and get an extra first round pick out of it, which I think what they would get if you move back off a 3 to 9 for the QB. I think that would be worth a 1. Sam takes 9, Drew Brees. Rumors only, obviously. I have boots on the ground in Maryland. Yeah, it's certainly possible they do that. I could see it. And look, he is 210 pounds, which might get you worried. He's 210 pounds and plays like he thinks he's Cam Newton. And that may not be a recipe for something as well that makes people feel real comfortable in that. But I applaud New England if they made that move. It seems like you got these teams right now that are really in that desperate shape for that quarterback. Minnesota feels that way a little bit. New York feels like maybe a little bit that way. But if you got those teams frothing at the mouth, why not take advantage of it if you're New England, especially if you're not completely sold on Daniels? I do still like Daniels a lot, though. And man, I still think he goes, well, geez. I mean, at this point, maybe then you get Minnesota trading up and taking J.J. McCarthy with the 3rd overall selection. And then where does Daniels go? Do the Giants take him then? Draft gets interesting at that point. I don't know if he actually weighed in at the combine. I'm bringing up the combine numbers on him, and it's a little bit sketch to me that I don't know if he even was out there. Because they don't have his hand size on there. And if you look at all the other prospects, even the guys that didn't throw at the combine, they at least got their arm length measured and all that. But you don't have arm length and you don't have hand size for him listed down. But he is put down for 210 pounds. He looked like he probably played about 195 last year to maybe 200 on a day where he ate a lot of food on a Saturday night. So he's going to be legitimately light. But I do think his frame's got room to add it. He's legit 6'4". He can add a little bit more on there. I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal for him to put on 10, 15 pounds once he becomes a pro. Vegas could definitely be doesn't that seem like a natural landing spot for Jaden, doesn't it? Just that franchise. Talk about a guy that brings some excitement to the place. I think Vegas would have to trade up to make that happen, though. I think there's some team in the top 10 at that point that would jump if he came through there. Giants would definitely be enticed to do so. Snail says, does Daniels remind you of RG3 when he's getting hit too? Yeah, a little bit. It's, the big thing with it is RG3 would run around like a running back and, get another guy that's like sub 200 pounds and just, those guys get hit, they get squashed and you have to get down. That's the biggest issue there with it is that, it's okay being that light of size if he is, but you can't run it like you're a fullback now. And it shows back up. I'm like scouting this corner the other night for some team, and here comes one of the magical plays that Jaden Daniels is known for last year, getting out in the open and scrambling around, and the guy just comes up and when I say light him up, just lights him up in the open field. Not a dirty hit at all, just completely Daniels just deciding I'm going to stay on my feet. And he's going to get away with like 2 of those in the NFL level before he gets crushed. And your point on RG3, that's kind of what happened to him. He got eventually, I think he was trying to run around and got tackled by Haloti Ngata and his leg got snapped forward and then just kind of kept getting worse from there. And, you can't be that size running like that. You got to get down. But I do think that he's got, I think he's a bit taller than RG3 was. And I do think he's just got more of a build that will be able to, just a skinny kid, but I think he can definitely fill out and not lose his mobility by doing so. I mean, his mobility right now is like a guy that's legitimately probably pretty close to that 4.37 kind of 40-ish range. He goes to 4.45 after gaining 15 pounds, and that's not a problem. And he's still going to be a 1.55 10-yard split guy, and then he can take the abuse and the pounding. Daniels reminds me of Randall Cunningham. That's my comp for him. He doesn't have quite the windup of Randall. Randall really had to take it around the block to get the ball out of his hands, but he's got a little bit of that same kind of escapability and suddenness in the open field. There's obviously a little Lamar there too, with the change of direction, midfield jump cut thing that those guys do that no other quarterbacks are ever able to kind of pull off as well. So he's got all those little elements kind of going on with what he can pull off. But I like the Randall Cunningham comp because the arm strength's there too. Like the arm talent, the arm strength is also, very strong. Brian says, thanks for doing this, B. Got to cook dinner. See y'all later tonight. Sounds good, Brian. Back in an hour here doing the B&B show. And appreciate you, man, for all your support. Well, thank everybody out there for everybody being members, patrons of the channel, all you guys do. Very, very kind of you on all that. Many of you, long-time support. We got people into their third year in supporting this channel. So thank you so much for that. Rand says, I'm getting kind of concerned about our play at guard. Yeah, I'm a little worried about it too. It is the one spot it's kind of a combo deal. It's the one spot you have coming into this draft that is as light and thin as any place in the team. And then you have your general manager's recent comments about the fact that guard's really not his thing, man. He just doesn't seem to be all that worried about it. And so you go, man, were we going to end up like a 4th and 5th round guard? And he's going to be like, all right, we're going to call that a day on that from that standpoint of things. Like, we got to do better than that, don't we? So we'll see what we do as far as addressing it in this upcoming draft. I expect there to be at least 2, maybe even 3 guys drafted on that offensive line this upcoming draft, Rand. But it is, if they don't, then I'm guessing you would be seeing some kind of trade post-draft very quickly to try to add some quality in there quickly. Because it can get dicey. It can get a little bit dicey. Got the big board updated. Show you guys that real quick here. We got, I have moved Troy Fatano ahead of Olu Fashanu. Mims ahead of Latham. I think Latham might very well go to the Chargers. They were working with him at his pro day real deep. Real deep. Think about putting Bo Nix up into the first round. I don't know. I go back and forth on that one. Rance is looking like Bradford and a rookie to me right now. Probably. Yeah. Those are very likely to be your 2 starters as it goes forward here now. So yeah, you go, all right, here you go. And Bradford's really nice. I mean, he's everything that I ask for guys that can move. He's a 99% like athlete, percentile athlete for the position. He's just got to clean up the technique stuff, and we'll see if he can do it. But he's going to be definitely a fit for this offense. I'll give him that. And he had games last year where he was our highest graded offensive line. He had a game, I think, where he was our highest graded offensive player in the whole game. So the flashes were there with Bradford. Flashes were definitely there with Bradford. Like I says, B just got home. Won't be able to make the call-in show as I will be busy with church for Easter. Well, no worries there. That's the good part about doing this every month, Megan, is I'm going to keep doing the call-in show, kind of on that timeline. So if you miss one, we still got the other ones that you might be able to call into and we can do those on that one. So we'll keep these up as far as consistently going. And absent I've got to move in about a month from now. That'll probably take me out a little bit. But absent that, we'll be motoring along with these consistently into the future too. I promise. Primissimo. Tell you what, too, man. My Tyler Newbin, I had to knock him down to the second round. I had to knock Tyler down. Man, he had a bad combine. 4.59 or the pro day. 4.59 pro day. He just did not get it done. The other guys that we're not talking about, who's really a real, I think, strong possibility of the Hawks drafting is that Cooper DeJean guy. That would knock shot me if they grabbed him. I could see him being a real fit for this defense too. Megan says, I worked out the angle for the Zorn vid too. All right, let's go. Let's go, Megan. Love it. I love it. Ooh. Nope. Kitty's deep in sleep. If we were going for a quarterback and our choice between Nix and Penix, who are you taking and why? I think at the end of the day, I think I'd have a hard time and I'd be pulled both backwards and forwards on this, Megan, because I think both of those two guys are really close to each other on my evaluation, and so I'm driven back and forth a little bit. I think when it comes down to having Michael Penix's coach here, and when you're talking about getting a young quarterback, you're talking about trying to maximize his rookie contract. To me, in this day and age, it's less than finding the guy that wants to be here for 10 to 15 years and more about making sure you maximize that rookie deal, because that's a big pathway to getting out there to win a Super Bowl is putting that roster around them that's right and having a player that's kind of ready to start sailing and going from day one. Nix also checks this box, but having Grubb in the house who knows this player so well, what he can and cannot do, to me sets the stage up in a unique way versus Nix that you would have to learn a little bit. And there's things I like about Nix that Penix doesn't have, the mobility and a little bit more of a ruggedness to him. But I think Michael Penix's arm talent is legitimate. I think that there's track record of guys that are able to sit in the pocket and just be back there throwing darts, just freaking dropping dimes where they don't need to be upwardly mobile or be throwing on the run all the time. They can get it done from the pocket. I like them both though, Megan, and I do think the Nix is right there with him. Snail says, if you looked at Malachi Corley, the newest reported top 30 visit. I love Malachi Corley. One of my favorite players in the draft. I would call him one of Brandon's guys. I don't think I'm alone on this one, Snail, because I think there's a lot of guys that cover this draft that have a heavy affinity for Malachi. I think I was just looking at his quarterback today, Austin Butler, actually, for the show tonight, Snail. He's the yak king of this draft. There is no wide receiver that is even anywhere close to him as far as his ability to take a catch and go do some nasty things with it. His comp is being put towards like a Deebo Samuel. I think it's a little bit more like another guy that used to terrorize us a little bit, Anquan Boldin. I think he's got that Anquan Boldin build and kind of way he goes about what he does. Love him as a player. Again, too, one of my favorite in a draft filled with a lot of wide receivers, man. One of my favorite receivers in this draft that you can see right now. You've got your upper on my draft board here. You've got your Harrisons and Neighbors and Odunzes. They're your prospect blue chippers. here in this draft for me in the first round. But then, once you get past Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey, Adonai Mitchell, I've got Malachi Corley there, even ahead of guys like a lot of other people love it, Xavier Worthy with the speed, or Xavier Legette out of South Carolina because he's physically very freakish. But to me, Corley's legitimate with his yak and his catching ability and route running translating to the NFL level. And you need guys in this day and age that can make a catch and then do something with the ball in their hands after the catch. And there are a lot of guys in this draft that don't necessarily do that as much. When they'll make the catch and then they're going to go down pretty much after the catch. And that being, a few of these like slot guys are a little bit like that. And Jacob Cowling and Brendan Rice, Tez Walker, Troy Franklin, Johnny Wilson. It's kind of like they'll make the catch, but they're going down after the catch pretty much. Guy's lightning with the ball in his hands. So, but I do have a second round grade on him. So if it's the difference between taking a Corley or a Junior Colson Snail or a Corley and Cooper Bebe, I think from Seattle's perspective, I would still present those other guys liking them a bit more. Randy Cut says, I'm with Ben Grubb. With Grubb in here, I'd go with Penix. That would be the differentiating factor, Megan. If we had any other different offensive coordinator in here, that'd be enough to maybe twist the day for me to go with Nix instead. But the fact that you do have Grubb here, Megan says, hell no on Penix B, and you know why I say that, not because he's old either. No, everyone's got their own reasons on why their evaluations, and Penix, I will say, is one of the harder evaluations to do in recent years because of all that you have to build into the evaluation. It is not a simple outlook of him of this is what he has, this is where he's going to be, and that's who he's going to be when he gets there. It is a lot more harder to kind of sift through Penix in looking at him. But, I think I was watching Dan Marino documentary about a week and a half ago, and just kind of clicked in my mind in watching Dan, another guy at the time where, even in an age at that time where you didn't need to be really mobile, Dan was highly immobile, especially once he started having some of the lower leg injuries, the knee injuries. And he was just able to be back there, and he could just be an artist from the pocket in how he diced you up and cut you up. And he could be a difference maker in that way. And it's unusual, It was unusual. But I like Grubb, Megan. I do. I'm not anti-Nix. I mean, not Grubb, but Nix. I'm not anti-Nix at all. I definitely like him too. He's got good arm talent. I was just looking at him before we started the stream up today to get some final notes on him, and was really enjoying watching him on some of these throws, throw with some really nice anticipation. I need to have guys wide open, but can kind of anticipate the break. It's good to see. Dale says, I would argue we wouldn't want Penix. We wouldn't want Penix with Grubb because one of them has an issue using the middle of the field. If that's something you want to see, then you should be hoping that's a Penix problem. Yeah. I will say on the whole, not using the middle of the field in college football, I think it's a tiny bit different when you got the wide hash marks, because the wide hashes pull you to using more of the edges of the field than you have to in the NFL, with it being a little more slimmed down on that point at the NFL level, where now you've got to use that middle of the field. You can't just go from one side to the other side with the length of the hashes that you get to work with. But I lean back on Grubb on this one, Snail. I just think that if Grubb's coming into the situation and he knows that this may be the one opportunity he gets to be an offensive coordinator to continue to raise his profile, to go where he wants to go with his career, I don't think that he's going to advocate for drafting Michael Penix because they've had the history that they've had. He's going to believe in the future that they can bring, and I would trust in that. Because it would come down to that. There's no way you're taking Michael Penix if you're the Seattle Seahawks with your offensive coordinator over there going, no, this isn't the one. No, just not maybe not this one, guys. I know I did. Yes, I coached. Yes, he was great. Just it would have to be by the sign off on Grubb, and coaches in the position of Grubb right now, or coaches in the position of a Mike McDonald if he was trying to consider going for JJ McCarthy or anything. You got Junior Colson. I'm going to have a lot more trust in that coach and outlook of his situation to want to bring a guy in or say not to bring the guy in if he's got a rich history with said guy. Because he knows what he's getting, and I don't think that anybody's going to do that stuff just because, well, he was such a good soldier for me 2 years ago. I'll be good to him here now. I think they go, look, my job's on the line here. I got to get this right. I love you, man, but I got to get this right. But I'm not sure if the middle of the field stuff is going to be as much of an issue. We'll see. I think that, though, hash mark way over here, hash mark way over here, your offensive lineman gets to pull you way to this side of the field. Why attack the middle of the field at that point when you got the wide hash way on over there? Not just the wide hash there, but the space up the field to the wide hash you create. And you've got the unique quarterback and a guy like Penix who can be on that far hash, throw it 40 yards down the field, and he's throwing across the hash marks too. So it's like, yeah, it's a 40-yard throw, but it's really like a 55, 60-yard throw when you break down how far he's really tossing it from one to the other spot. Megan says, oh no, B, I know you're not anti-Mix. I think Mix is better, but agree to disagree as usual. I hear you. Lovely words in the English language they are. Agree to disagree. That's for sure. That is absolutely for sure. Well, let's see if you guys got the last couple questions. Let's put them on in here now, and then we'll put a button on this. I will be back in next Thursday, unless it works for a better Saturday kind of appointment. We'll just go off Thursday. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat if there's Saturday's the better day. But otherwise, we'll do a 5 o'clock call-in show next Thursday and chop up whatever's going on with the Hawks. We can talk a little bit about free agency, what moves you would have wanted to see they did make or did make and you're happy with, either way. What you want to see in the draft, we'll cover it all. Snails is all die on the hill that Howell is the better prospect between Penix and Howell. Injuries, surrounding talent, age, and running ability. I like it, man. I like it, and I hope to God you are right about that, Snail. If you're right about that, that means that's a hell of a future for the Seattle Seahawks if they're getting that kind of player in the building. And I certainly think that there's a big opening here to making that argument. The age factor alone, when you come into it, man, it really puts things into perspective when you're like, well, this guy and this guy are older than this guy, but this guy's been playing at the NFL level already. And you go, yeah. It's like a kid skipping grades in school. You're like, yeah, I gotta put that into perspective. If it's not just the apple for apple. I'm putting this guy up against these guys, and it's like also the fact that they've had that extra time. They've had the extra time at the college level. Yeah. So I could see that being the way that this breaks down and breaks down, Snail. And then you will definitely be the guy who gets the big props if it plays out like that. Rand says Grubb will take one look at the slant DK in the Dallas game and know we need to use the middle of the field. Yeah. I think he'll find a lot better way of using the middle of the field. And it doesn't have to be that they use it at a league best to me. It's just about taking it off that league worst rate. Taking it off that we're going to be 32nd every year and attacking the middle of the field, and you know it. And if they can just bring it up a little bit closer to that middle of the road state of things, then the unpredictability of things is back in play when it comes to the offense. And that will then help the stuff to the outside. Now the stuff to the outside starts to become more efficient and effective. Megan says, I'll tell you how wrong you are on Twitch. Sounds good, Megan. Saturday will be better for me, for Easter stuff, but whatever works for everyone. Okay. Well, I'll consider opening on Saturday. Definitely give me the feedback you got, folks, on where you might be feeling with that, and we can adjust it from there. I want to try to get as many people an opportunity to potentially call in and get their voice heard. So let me know. Let me know on that, folks. All right. Well, we'll be back in an hour with the B&B show. Me and Brendan are going to talk about these very quarterbacks in this draft and try to figure out if there is any of these guys that is going to work for the Seattle Seahawks. So do please tune in here soon in an hour. I want to thank again you guys for all your support. I got just a tremendous amount of it here between Patreon and the memberships on this channel, along with I know many of you that are also members or patrons, also are big donators to the channel. Thank you so very much for that. It's been really another just great time being able to go through this off season. We don't have games going on, but still able to do the channel full time and just get the videos cooked out. Because of your guys' support, you're really at the foundation of being able to make this happen and go here on this channel. So thank you so very much for all you guys do to allow me to do what I do. Megan, tell Ollie I said, what's up? I'll say hey. And I understand on the offline on the dad's anniversary thing, Megan. No worries there. I totally get that. So back here in an hour, then back next Sunday with another show as well. So until that time, my fellow members and patrons, much love out to you. Thank you for all you do. But please, my goodness, don't you ever forget